First, you need to understand what Jonathan was actually walking away from. Because calling Lakewood Church a church is like calling the Titanic a boat. Technically accurate, completely misleading. Lakewood is the single largest Protestant congregation in the United States of America. Every Sunday, 45,000 people pour into a building that used to be a basketball arena. The Houston Rockets played there. Now it hosts something the Rockets never could, a religious experience engineered to absolute perfection. Joel Osteen spent over $100 million converting that arena. The lighting rigs, the camera systems, the staging, every single detail designed to create one specific feeling the moment you walk through those doors. And it works. 7 million television viewers every week, broadcasts in over 100 countries, books that have sold tens of millions of copies, a social media following that makes most pop stars look small. Annual revenue estimated at $60 million. This isn't a ministry. This is a machine. And here's the part that makes Joel Osteen's story even more extraordinary. He never planned any of it. When his father John died in 1999, Joel worked behind the scenes, cameras, television production. He had never preached a single sermon, was absolutely terrified of public speaking. His family pushed him forward on that first Sunday after his father's death, and Joel Osteen stepped behind that pulpit and discovered he had a gift. Not for fire and brimstone, not for theological complexity, for something far more powerful in the modern world. Hope, positivity, the unwavering message that God wants you to succeed, that your best days are ahead, that if you believe it, you can receive it. Critics called it prosperity gospel, theologians tore it apart, journalists wrote hit pieces every time Joel bought something expensive. But the crowds kept coming. The books kept selling. The empire kept growing. And through every single moment of that rise, young Jonathan Osteen was watching. Taking notes. Seeing everything. From the moment Jonathan was born, his future had already been decided by other people. He appeared in church videos as a toddler, smiled for cameras at charity events, stood beside his parents during television tapings. To the outside world, the Osteens were the American Christian dream, wealthy, blessed, powerful, and seemingly perfect in every direction you looked. Jonathan had a role. Everyone around him knew what it was. The problem: Jonathan was the wrong kind of person for it. His sister Alexandra, she was built for the spotlight. Joel's charisma, his timing, his gift of making 45,000 strangers feel personally seen. She seemed designed at a cellular level for exactly this life. Jonathan was her complete opposite. Quiet, thoughtful, deeply introverted. While Alexandra practiced sermons, Jonathan practiced piano. While she learned to work crowds, he learned music production. While she stepped into the lights, he gravitated towards silence. He did join Lakewood's worship team, played music during services. He was genuinely talented. But he never stepped behind the pulpit. Never preached. Never once showed interest in leading. People noticed. The church quietly stopped featuring him in promotional materials. His appearances became rare. His social media went silent, no announcement, no explanation. He just started to disappear. And then around 2013, when Jonathan was in his early 20s, exactly the age when heirs to religious dynasties are supposed to step up and claim their inheritance, he didn't step forward. He stepped back. All the way back. By the way, have you ever watched something successful up close and realized you didn't actually want it, like really seen it from the inside and thought, no, not for me? Drop that in the comments. I genuinely want to know, because I think a lot of you understand this feeling better than you realize. And if you're finding this story as fascinating as I am, hit subscribe. We go this deep every single week. Here's what the rumors got wrong. When Jonathan disappeared, the internet invented stories. He became an atheist. There was a massive family blow-up. He hated his father. He rejected everything. None of that was true. Here's what sources close to the family actually said. Jonathan wasn't angry. He wasn't rebellious. He wasn't lost. He was asking questions. And not soft questions, not questions that could be smoothed over with a smile and a scripture verse. Hard questions. Questions like, if God guarantees wealth to faithful believers, why are the majority of sincere Christians living paycheck to paycheck? If positive thinking is the engine of divine blessing, what do you say to the person who thought as positively as humanly possible and still lost everything? If the gospel is about abundance and victory in your best life right now, then where exactly does the cross fit? Where does sacrifice fit? Where does Jesus telling a rich young man to sell literally everything he owned and give it to the poor fit inside a message being preached from a $100 million renovated basketball arena? These are not the questions of someone who hated Christianity. These are the questions of someone who read the actual Bible seriously and found a massive gap between what the text said and what was being preached every Sunday. But here's the thing that makes this so suffocating. In an organization where the message is the business model, where the product your entire empire sells is one specific version of hope, what happens when someone inside the family starts questioning the message? You can't ask those questions out loud. You can't ask them from inside that structure, not when millions of dollars depend on the answers staying exactly what they've always been. Not when the whole machine runs on one simple idea that cannot be complicated or contradicted or even gently interrogated. Jonathan understood this. He saw the trap with total clarity. And then he saw something else. Something more personal, more painful. He watched what the empire did to his father. He watched Joel Osteen become a man who couldn't enter a grocery store without being swarmed. He watched the relentless criticism that followed his father everywhere, the think pieces, the Twitter pylons, the accusations that erupted anytime Joel spent money on anything. He watched the performance that never ever ended, the impossible standard of perpetual positivity that had to be maintained regardless of what was actually happening behind closed doors. And Jonathan did the maths. The math was simple, brutal, undeniable. Is this worth it? Is this actually a life? In 2019, a small music company in Los Angeles registered a new client. Jonathan Osteen. Not Joel Osteen's son, not the Lakewood heir, just Jonathan Osteen, musician. He started releasing music, and what he released was the last thing anyone could have predicted. Not worship songs, not contemporary Christian music, not anything that sounded remotely connected to the world his last name represented. Ambient electronic compositions, moody, atmospheric, deeply interior instrumental pieces, no lyrics, no altar call, no message to sell, track titles that read like journal entries: Stillness, The Long Way Home, Letting Go. Music critics who found his work without knowing his background praised it without hesitation. One reviewer described it as, and I need you to hear this description, the sound of someone finding peace after turbulence. The heir to America's biggest church was making wordless music alone in a Los Angeles apartment. No congregation, no cameras, no television audience. Just a man and his art and apparently finally some peace. Then in 2021, Jonathan made his most definitive statement yet. He got married. Not at Lakewood, not with 45,000 witnesses, not with his father officiating under stadium lights while cameras rolled for the broadcast. Small ceremony, California, private, intimate, almost aggressively ordinary by Osteen standards. When photos surfaced online, people who had watched Jonathan grow up on their screens noticed something in his face they had genuinely never seen there before. He looked happy. Not the practiced smile of someone performing joy for cameras. Real happiness. Unguarded, unpolished, the specific look of a person whose life actually belongs to them. Now here's what everyone gets wrong about Jonathan's faith. He didn't become an atheist activist, didn't write a tell-all book destroying his father's legacy, didn't launch a competing ministry or go on podcast tour as an ex-evangelical spokesperson. Instead, he started volunteering. Quietly, without cameras, without announcements. Homeless outreach programs, environmental causes, mental health awareness. The exact causes that critics have spent decades saying Lakewood Church should be prioritizing instead of selling books about abundance and blessing. Read that again and let it actually register. His father preaches to millions about victory and success. Jonathan works directly with people experiencing homelessness and mental illness. His father lives in a home worth nearly $11 million. Jonathan lives quietly and modestly in Los Angeles. His father built a global empire on the idea that faith leads to success. Jonathan walked away from guaranteed success to find faith on his own terms. With zero cameras present. In 2022, a literary magazine published an anonymous essay titled The Sound of Leaving. The author was identified only as the adult son of a famous father who had walked away from a significant family business. No names, no confirmed details. But people who knew the Osteen situation recognized it immediately. One paragraph stopped people cold, people screenshot it, shared it, argued about it in comment sections for weeks. It said this: I was backstage watching my father speak to thousands. He was saying all the right things, things that made people feel good, things that would sell books and fill stadiums, and I believed he believed them. But I also knew there was so much he wasn't saying, so much complexity and doubt and struggle that the message didn't have room for. And I realized I would rather spend my life exploring those difficult truths with a handful of people than repeating simplified certainties to thousands. If Jonathan wrote that, and everything points to him writing that, then his departure wasn't a crisis. It wasn't rebellion. It was the most honest thing he could have done. He left because he was hungry for depth, for authenticity, for the freedom to sit inside a hard question without immediately converting it into a sermon designed to protect a brand worth $60 million. When a journalist found Jonathan outside a coffee shop in Los Angeles in 2023 and asked for his thoughts on Lakewood, on his father's ministry, on all of it, Jonathan's response was 7 seconds long. I respect my dad tremendously, but that's his story, not mine. I'm just trying to make music and live a quiet life. I don't have anything to promote or sell. Then he walked away. No anger, no drama, just a clear, quiet boundary around something he'd spent years carefully building in private. His own peace. Joel Osteen is 61 years old, still preaching, still smiling, still filling that arena every Sunday. Alexandra has stepped fully into the succession, preaching, co-hosting, writing books, carrying the brand forward with the ease of someone who is always going to end up exactly here. The machine keeps running. But Jonathan's most recent album dropped last month. It's called The Freedom of Falling. Almost no promotion, almost no announcement, just the music released quietly into the world for anyone who cared enough to find it. His father built something that reaches millions. Jonathan built something that reaches dozens. His father chose influence. Jonathan chose peace. And here is the question I genuinely cannot stop thinking about. What if Jonathan Osteen saw something the rest of us are only just beginning to understand? What if the son who appeared to abandon the legacy was actually the one who found what the legacy was always supposed to be pointing toward? What if walking away from the kingdom was the most faithful thing he ever did? The seat is still empty, and maybe that emptiness is the loudest sermon Lakewood has ever preached.